Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to do a review of Napoleon, designed by Ted Racer, known for a lot of hex and counter war games. This is not that in any degree. You are simulating singularly and individually the life of Napoleon, from his infantile beginnings up to his great escapades and beyond. Without further ado, let's take a look. Okay, let's take a look at what comes inside Napoleon, designed by Ted Racer. You get the manual. Oui, oui. There's a rules of play. It's pretty compact. There's not it's a pretty, well, okay, yes, there's words on a page and it's small print, but it's not bad for as far as breadth goes. It's a pretty easy flow of the game. And then the playbook, which is more than just a playbook. GMT always does more. They give you an example of play, they come over some topics, they go over some of the cards and give you a little background. Plus, you're going to get the whole chronology of Napoleon for those who are not in the know of the Napoleonic era. And then some design notes. And then a nice Rudyard Kipling lullaby. Because who wouldn't want to end their game of Napoleon without a lullaby? You get this big, epic board, which for one person seems overkill, but I love it. It's absolutely exquisitely looking. Ugh, gotta love it. The background artwork, foreground clarity. Everything you need is pretty much on this board, except for a couple different areas off the board to place some cards. But for the most part, this covers the general breadth of the play area. You got your scoring track for various scoring types, your year track. Get back here. Different tracks and etc., all of which we'll go over. You also get a campaign battle map, which you can use. It's double-sided, so on the one hand you get some core information. On the other hand, during each year you're going to likely go on a campaign. When you do a campaign, you're going to simulate it here. And go through all the different steps for the campaign, after which you'll set it aside and get back to living the life of Napoleon in all its greatness, or not, depending on how well you are. And then we have lots and lots of cards. Now these are all segmented out based on eras or points, trigger points during the game, and some of these cards will come into play. It isn't, you have three major phases. When he's a commander, then the FFC, first cool dude, and then of course the emperor, the EMD. Not to be confused with the EMT. Do not call this game if you're starting to have heart palpitations. Call an EMT. Just call this game if you're having fun. Anyway, so then you've got little tokens. Not very many. There's not a lot of tokens here. So, yeah, we'll just keep talking about that later. And then you get a single 10-sided die, which seems innocuously unimportant, except for the fact that it is pretty much the heart and soul of the culmination of every activity you do in this game. So there it is, in all its glory. Seems unassuming, but it will hurt you if it gets the chance. And that's what comes in Napoleon. Now let's give you an example of how to play the game. Alright, the object of the game of Napoleon is to win-ish. The beautiful thing about Napoleon is that you're really journeying through the life of Napoleon, and you will win or lose in gradients. Something I really like, and something I'll probably mention as a pro. It's not a simple binary win condition. It is, you will win this much, you could win gloriously, you could win less gloriously. It all comes down to the glory token. Again, unassuming, but that glory be! You've got your various tracks. You've got these are resource counters. So you've got your diplomacy, your glory, your politics, and your admin. The admin are pretty important, and they reset. So some of these will reset at the end of your turn, and some of them will not. For example, admin resets, but your glory and your political acumen do not, but the others do, and so you'll be resetting. So what is the point of this game? Well, you start off as pretty much a nobody. And so when you begin, you're going to start off with just this subset of cards here, the commander cards, and you'll notice that everything is really well explained without having to refer to the manual. This is something I also like. It's like point of gaze information is better than point of lookup information, where I can immediately see what I need to do without having to go, oh, I need to check the manual. Refer to page 17 to understand what to do. Now here, everything you need to know to get rolling is right here. So we take this and we've set it up. We've got our cards, which I'm going to shuffle here. And blah, 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 blah. Hang on. Okay, so I've shuffled these cards, and I'm going to place them in the draw deck for year one. There's a lot of years, and every time you switch years, some things could happen. Some cards come, some cards go, some major changes happen, some things don't. It all goes on and on and on. So the other interesting thing, but not only when you have certain phases of cards, certain stacks of cards, not only do you get these regular cards here, you also have certain cards that just simply get deployed right away. You'll notice in the command here that it says, use cards 1 through 34, but immediately play 18, 22, and 23. So what is 18, 22, and 23? Well, follow the rules. This is 23, and this gets, again, in the back of the card, it tells you what to do. Place face down in strategy and tactics. And then we have Bonaparte leads. That's also a tactics card here. And then Napoleon himself. But he starts face down. So you've got to work with him. And his income is basically 1 admin point per year. When any campaign or expedition ends and he gets 5 glory, then he gets to flip it over. He starts building up his rapport, per se. And so he gets a point. We're going to set that up to start with. Card draw track 1. Year 1, admin point 1, we're ready to go. Before we begin, I'm going to explain a couple things about the board itself. Lots of these places are places where you're going to be placing cards. Those cards are usually going to have some sort of triggered effect or ongoing effect. Napoleon himself could have multiple cards. You can have multiple cards in most any of these places except for where it specifically says otherwise. Otherwise, you can have them out there. You've got opportunities for Napoleon to get a wife. Yep, and certain things can happen there. Napoleon's bed, ooh. And then you can have legitimate sons or non-legitimate sons, the Bonaparte family name. So you've got that section. You've also got a variety of tracks, and these are going to come into play later. You're going to start off slow, meandering a bit as far as building up and starting off as just Napoleon that no one knows about. And then over time, as you switch from these eras and you get to these major points in his life, you're going to switch over to larger and larger opportunities with larger and larger risk. And then certain of the cards are going to be filled with leaders who help, leaders who don't, treaties, commanders. This area here is for the campaign. After almost every year, there's going to be a campaign phase where you're going to basically go on a campaign and try to achieve some sort of result, hopefully victory, that will give you glory. Glory is the fuel that fuels all things. And a lot of the things you're going to do is going to be modifying this die roll modifier, because you're going to once you're done, we'll go over it, but basically how this goes is how the die roll is going to go, which determines what things happen after your campaign. You have certain things in the campaign that matter. So as time goes on, you're going to have a campaign, usually only one. You're only going to have one campaign you're actually going to do. Initially, you're at the will of the draw, but then over time, when you switch to different phases, you're going to get a little more deterministic about being able to choose which campaign you want to be involved with. And there's a lot of rules for that. I'm not going to go into that. This game it grows vaster and vaster, and that's part of the fun, so I don't want to give that away. Commanders will come into your deck here as part of the game flow. They will be useful to you. You will be sending them off to do certain things, expeditions, or be involved in a campaign. Campaign modifiers are both good and bad. All of this plays a part in the campaign part that funnels down into this campaign phase. But enough prep work. And there's also diplomacy. One more thing. Everybody starts off hating you. That's just the way it is. Everyone's hostile. No one likes you. Everyone hates you. Go eat dirt. And so over time, you're going to have cards that may adjust this and whatever. Anytime the diplomacy track during that phase gets rolled, it either stays where it is or it gets worse. It never improves as part of the diplomacy phase. Certain cards can beef it up. Certain treaties can make it so that it doesn't get worse or that it stays in a particular allied situation, whatever. And also politics. Later on in the game, as you get more powerful and you get more emperor-like, you're going to find that things at home aren't great, and you're going to have to work hard to keep the people happy. keep the talent happy. Enough. Let's get rolling. What do? It is year 1793. Napoleon, a nobody by any account, is ready to start building his empire. What does he do? Well, we shuffle these cards and we begin by drawing one. We're going to draw one and we're going to do whatever it says. Simon says, Marat, commander, when revealed, may place in commander's box. He's an independent commander, which means that he can go on expeditions, which is another side thing. And his effect is you can use up 2 of your own glory or 1 administrant point if he's king of Naples to add a +2 die roll in any one combat round after the first one during the active campaign. So he's going to go here. We have our first commander. He's there for us. He loves us. We have a bond. All right, that's it. That's literally the first card draw. Now we drop this down and we go to the second phase. Ooh, Augustin Robespierre. May place in politics. Now, may means you don't have to. You could just discard it and move on. Now, what happens is once he's in the politics box here, is that he can choose to ignore 1 campaign or expedition per year. Yeah, and then gains 2 on under arrest, which is kind of cool. Inflicts -2 on Brumaire. So there's some trade-offs here. A lot of these cards are trade-offs, and I'm just going to show you the basic start, let alone how crazy it gets later. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and place him here. I don't have to, but I can. And again, you can have several cards here. You can stack up all cards in a lot of places except for, again, these 2 here. All right, well, that's card 2. Now we're going to go to card 3. Mormont, another commander. Guess what? He's not loyal. So later on in the game, that's going to matter. You could use up 1 of your admin points to give a +1 die roll, so that could be valuable. But it's not valuable now, so let's flip and go this. Immediate effect, Robespierre's fall. Remove Augustin. Oh, man. So right now, when revealed, I have to remove Augustin Robespierre, then immediately add cards 54 to 63 to the deck. Ouch. Already? All right, so he's out of the game. And that's the other thing. When a lot of these cards go out of the game, it's not like you discard them and then shuffle them and roll them back in. Some you do. But in general, and not just generals, but commanders and corporals too, when cards disappear, they disappear. They're removed. All right, and then we shuffle these cards into and shuffle in all current campaign modifiers. In other words, we can get rid of Yeah, so this is some crazy stuff going on. This seems like a little busy work right now, but trust me, the timing of when this comes and how it happens can be pretty dramatic. Yep, remove this card from play. So we're going to add these cards in, and I will do that now. And we'll shuffle those in. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. And then we will get on with our life. So that's it. That's another card, another seismic shift. Now we're going to draw another card. Things keep going crazy here, folks. Corsica, expedition. Roll the dice. So this is an expedition. This is sort of like a campaign, but it has to happen right here and now. We're going to roll the die and remove this card from play with no effect on a result of 1 to 6. Otherwise, immediately resolve an expedition. Okay, so first off, we're going to roll the die. If we get a 1 to 6, this never happened. It's a 3, 1 to 6. So this card never happened. Napoleon never went to Corsica, which means he doesn't get to do a resolve. Had he done an expedition, it would either have cost him some glory, which doesn't matter, he doesn't have much now, or it could have gotten him some glory. So, boo! Out that goes. Now we're going to draw a card again, but now that we've drawn our assuredly 5 cards, because you can draw from 5 to 12 cards, we have to roll to decide if we stop this year or if we keep going. On a die roll of 1... we stop. Oh my gosh. So that means that we only had 5 cards this year. Well, that's not going to be helpful. So we're going to do Napoleon's luck, which would have been useful later. But one time every year, you can use his luck to re-roll. Oh my gosh. This is the second time this has happened in a game. Only the first time it happened, I drew 1 card, and that card was roll to see if Napoleon is killed. And I double rolled once. And so... yeah, that was a 15-second game. We'll talk about that later. So basically, the round is done. I'm going to pretend not, because I need to show you how it works with campaigns. So let's pretend that we put a campaign modifier here, and let's see if we can find a campaign. Oh my gosh. Campaign, artillery, Toyon. Okay, let's pretend that that happened. Let's pretend everything that you just saw was just a myth. Yes. All right, so card deck phase, card action phase, campaign. This is a nice helper. Campaign resolution phase. In this phase, what we do is we bring out the campaign. This is going to be, oh wait, sorry. Campaign, artillery, Toyon. And then we bring the campaign modifiers, and then we can bring any tactics cards in that we want to. Right now, this can't be used yet, but this can be used. And then we can choose to bring in generals, but we have to pay their cost. Now, I have 1 point to spend. Do I want to, and I can either spend here or here, which gives me a +2. So if I survive a second combat round, this could give me a +2 modifier. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use Marmot, though. I'm going to assign Marmot. I'm going to pay the cost of 1 here, and I'm going to get rolling. Okay, so we've done that. We assign commanders, and then we begin the round, and we're going to use this commander to do +1. Yay! And that's going to be helpful. Yep. Yeah, so this is a pretty... Yeah, this is interesting. All right, so we've done everything. We've designated whether we want to do... do we want to use Napoleon leads? Gain 3 DRM in combat in 1 combat round per campaign. When used, roll the die. Okay, so I'm going to use this, which means I'm going to roll the die. On a 1 to 3, he's dead, and I don't have a reroll. Wow, 4. I basically barely survived having Bonaparte die right now. It's a hard knock life. All right, so it's 4. Napoleon's wounded. That seems like a bad thing, but it's not. He's wounded, which adds to his glory. He was wounded, yet he survived. Lend me your ear, folks. All right, so 5 gold. Well, that already makes this worthwhile, right? All right. And then we're ready to go. He gets a die modifier of 4, and then everything is set. And so we're going to go. So, +1 die roll in all combats after the first. Yeah, so this is going to, if I can survive the first one and I have to do another one, we'll go with it. Okay, so now we're going to roll the die. And this is the table of results. It's interesting because if we get a full-on victory of 9 or more, we win. Like, yay, we win. If we get a bloody victory, then we still win, but we have to place a bloody victory bloody result here on the domestics policy, which means that as time goes on, as your war-wearied French folk get kind of disgusted with how bloody things are, it can have an adverse effect on your diplomacy. So stalemate, these are bad because these mean you take another hit in your die roll and you have to keep fighting. And as you keep fighting, you lose die roll modifiers over and over. So if you can win outright, that's best. If not, you just keep plugging away until you win. Anyway, all right, let's roll the dice. What do I need? Well, I have a +4 die roll modifier, so I need a 5 for full-on victory and a 4 or a 3. Wow, 5. Am I cutting it close today or what? 5 + 4 is 9. 9 is a victory. I have won. I don't have to worry about bloody results. I don't have to worry about second rounds of combat. This worked out gloriously in my favor. And yay, so I win. So I checked and see what I did. Okay. I get 5. Ooh, nice. I get 5 gold and 1 political, 5 glory, and 1 political point, which is great. That's going to help me later. In the early game, diplomacy and politics aren't really that... They're not the focal point until you start taking on leadership roles as Napoleon. So, but it's going to be helpful later. All right, we've done it. We've won this. This campaign is done. Goodbye. Yay! It leaves once it's used. It's gone. There's lots of nice helps on these cards to tell you what to do and how to do it. And then the modifiers, we resolve these as well. 1 to 3. Okay, capturing a general. So if I roll the dice and I get 4 to 10. I did not. Nothing happens. Man, Napoleon, come on. All right, and then that's it. Now, the beautiful thing is campaign modifiers go. They disappear. They're used in the campaign and they're done. Strategy and tactics can be reused, and they're pretty valuable to have here. Commanders are interesting because you have to roll a die. You use them, and a lot of them have usage criteria. Some of them disappear, some of them don't. But after every one, you roll a dice, and on a 1 to 2. then they get discarded. That doesn't mean they still can come back, but they get discarded. And that's the campaign part. And that's literally the first vestiges of what you're going to do. That's it. So then you go diplomatic ways. You would be rolling for to discover the posture of each of these nations that you're not allied with. And then the politics once you're in charge, and then the cleanup phase is literally just rolling stuff back, flipping stuff over, treaties, whatever, just a little bit of busy work, very simple stuff. And then back you go to the next year. And then you're going to go through cards, and any cards that says I'm discarded for the current year, you get rid of. If not, you keep going. And that's it. That is Napoleon in a nutshell. It is, yeah, I've shown you basically the embassy, and I will warn you that this game, when you play it, tells a different story every time, but that's for the review. So let's talk about what I think of I, Napoleon, designed by Ted Racer. Okay, final thoughts on I, Napoleon. As usual, we go over the cons first, then we go over the pros, and then we go over my final thoughts. One of the things you're going to have to reconcile with if you're going to enjoy this game is that luck is a factor. Whether you like it or not, it just is. If you are interested in determinism and lots of full-on control and the ability to plan with perfect information, this is not it. That's just throwing that out there. If that's a showstopper, let's just get that out of the way and stop the show. And I would say that in general, setting this up, and this is going to go into the pros, but as far as upkeep, but there is some upkeep between the years that isn't necessarily trivial. In that you're setting up different decks of cards, they get shuffled in at different times. When that's over, you're going to have to resegregate the decks and whatever into all the different piles that are going to happen based on the branching storyline that you're basically concocting. So that doesn't mean that the overhead itself is cumbersome en masse. It just means that that's something to keep in mind if you're that there is some upkeep that's involved. My advice to you is to not lose or lose fast, and then you're fine. So initially, during the first game or two, you're going to be checking a lot of cards in play to figure out what triggers what reacts to what. That's not generally prohibitive for wargamers or anyone who has to look at basically sheets and sheets of thousands of counters and try and figure out who owns what and who killed who, and arguing, bickering over that. But generally speaking, the game is concise enough that once familiarity sets into all the different characters in play and all the different facets and actions and situations you're in, that it actually becomes second nature. But again, initially on, you're going to have to probably look and go, okay, if this is in play, cards kind of react. If this is in play, or that gets played, or this got played, but that got played first, you'll figure it out. It's not cumbersome. It's just something to keep in mind. There has been some discussion, as I've talked about people. There is the concept that this game plays itself. That's an argument that's been made against it, because you start to feel like, a lot of things are just going to happen. The cards are going to dictate what happens. The order that they go in dictates what happens. And it can start to feel that way, particularly right off the bat, as you're taking off and starting to build Napoleon's legacy in this game. But honestly, I think the argument really dissolves as you play it more and more. You're going to realize, no, there's a lot of ways that I can determine how to go, what risks to take. Reminiscent of Nemo's War, I think, a bit, where it's just like, yeah, the luck can be brutal, but you also have lots and lots of safety nets or ideas or ways to shape or shift to over time reduce that as you grow and become, first and then emperor and beyond. So I don't find that the game plays itself argument lasts for me, especially in the multiple playthroughs that I've found anyway. I will say that for all of the awesome framework and all of the, just the characterization, really, at the end, everything really does funnel down to a die roll modifier. You're going to play these cards in the order, whatever, and then you're going to get... everything you do and invest really comes down to, all of it sums up into this. What is your die roll modifier? Roll it. Oh, do I need Napoleon's luck or not? And that's... I could see that as an argument that, for all the hand waving and all the specials and modifiers and abilities, in the end it just comes down to, okay, I shifted all these things to get this die roll at this time. That's I think that glosses over a lot of the fun you have in getting to that die roll modifier. Plus, you also have decisions to make as far as, well, maybe I don't want to use all of these die roll modifiers here. Maybe I want to save some of these cards because there may be a subsequent battle based on the results of that, for example. I mean, it's not Waterloo the Gathering here. You're not going to be playing, tapping, or sorry, side scrolling, certain cards or whatever to get just the right thing to put a 1/1 Napoleon's Kid token into play. It's not that deeply nuanced, multi-layered combat here. It's really at the end everything funnels into you're gonna play, and then you get to a die roll modifier to handle a campaign, sometimes an expedition, whatever. Those are really the things that I could see people looking at and going, these are things that don't necessarily work great for me. I didn't find that to be a problem because now we're going to get into the pros, and this is where I have fun. The artwork on the game, let's just get that out of the way. It's exquisite. The map background itself is ornate. You see a lot of the subdued, the nice old style map, but it's backgrounded enough that it's not busy when you're looking at actual places to place the cards, where they go, how they fit into the whole scheme. I really like it. I actually find the evocative and stylish art to be perfectly suited for this. I would put Versailles and 1919 and Prime Minister's second place to this. Those two have a lot of different sort of setups for organization, but I really think this one actually excels and exceeds that for me as far as the style. The playbook and the rulebook, they become standard GMT fare, where you have the rulebook with everything in it that you need. You have the playbook. And when it says playbook, it's more than just a playbook. These games, they've got the playbook, they've got the example of play, they usually have alternate rules, but they also have designer notes, they have the history of Napoleon, they have breakdowns of every card. You're given everything you need to understand fully, not just the game itself, but the whole setting and the framework, the historical timeline, and how, and that's imbued into the playbook. So that's a huge positive to me. It always is. It's, in some ways, it almost pays the cost of the game just to have this booklet to describe things. I enjoy that immensely. The information presentation here is top notch. The board itself, but for a couple of places, has slots for everything. So it might be a big board when you're looking for a single player game. You're looking at this board and you're like, okay, this is a big board for one person, but honestly, it's not like you have this board and then you have a ton of peripheral stuff. Everything fits on the board nicely. A couple places, again, not completely, but enough that I felt like everything was cohesive as far as explaining the information. I do like that there's lots of helpers on the map. You don't have to refer to the guidebook, to the rule book a lot. Once you get the helpers on the map, you got there's your table here for that kind of thing. Helpers on the cards. The cards are great because they give you information in a quick view with icons, but then they also give you the information in text, which is huge to me. It's like the art. It tells you what you need to know on the card, which is great when you're looking on the map and seeing all of these places, going, okay, that maps, does the icons match, whatever, and that's good. I actually find that. I would find that the ease of flow of the game, the pacing and how it actually plays, nothing of itself takes more than just a short amount of time to do. You flip a card, you enact what happens. Even the triggers are generally within the realm of simplicity for minds like me, where you flip the card, if you're flipping an action card, you're doing what it says, or you're given a choice to do what it says, looking around going, okay, this is what happens, I'm hitting this, I'm preparing for a campaign, or I'm making, helping Napoleon get kiddos, etc. like that. Everything is so easy and it flows so well and it's so bite-sized that it fits really, really well. I really, really, really like the risk-reward factor. I'm a huge fan of that, where you're not throwing everything to the wind. You're not just throwing dice out and going, well, let's see what happens. You are kind of, but you also, there's such a build-up to that risk. Do I use my generals for this, or do I save them? Do I take the risk that if I use this big ability for Napoleon, with the risk, always a small risk that I could just die. I could die in battle. It could happen. But if so, I made the choice for that to happen. I chose to use a card. I didn't have to. I could have also taken a risk that I didn't have a die roll modifier. Maybe it would have worked out. We won't know. And so that whole risk reward is what really sets the stage. And it's not just one big thing. It's like every single phase of the game through the turns. And there's a lot of turns here. So like everything, campaigns, campaigns. I like. I actually like the tension. I know something that's fallen out of favor in games, and you know, yeah, thank you for doing so, is player elimination. Where like, okay, like, bang the dice game. Well, I didn't even get a turn and I'm out of the game, kind of thing. That's even more brutal in in a solo game, because player elimination in a solo game is kind of like, that's the ultimate player elimination, is it not? You're like, okay, well, I didn't even really get started on that, and that's usually a recipe for disaster. But I liken this game to J.R.R. Martin's, the Game of Thrones. Now, I don't recommend it per se. It's a story, and yes, I have read them or whatever. But here's the thing that he did that was just broke the mold, and I think we can all relate to it. You have this unwritten rule that the main characters live. They're in peril, whatever. You can have important or beloved side characters die, but the main characters have to live, right? You just didn't have to kill off the main characters in any of these stories. It just But here's the thing: like, Martin threw that on his head with book one. Like, you literally had one of the primary main beloved characters chopped off and dead. Like, gone. Like, no, this can't be happening. He must be resurrected, whatever. It's so jarring, and you don't have to kill off all the main characters. You don't have to make a habit of it. You just have to take out one. Once you've taken out one, it's enough to set the tone and exponentially drive up the suspense. Because because in your mind you're thinking, well, if the author can kill a central character, who's safe? What other character is safe? Could Tyrion be next? Etc., etc. You get this tension overload, not because characters are dying left and right, but one pivotal one is. And that's how I feel that Napoleon really drives in the tension and the suspense, in that you are never more than a step from killing off the main character, which is you. So you've got invested interest. Do you have 15 seconds of fame? Which, if you look on Board Game Geek and see one of my threads where, am I the worst emperor ever? I had a literal 15-second game. I also had many other games that were not. Am I a footnote in history? I'm not even a toe note in history with some of these games. But here's the thing: it was glorious. It was glorious because you really have that tension. I chose the risk. I chose to try it. Yes, it can happen. Yes, you can build up. You could be heading off to great things. But when you die, at the point you die, I didn't feel like it was totally at the whim of chance, and I had nothing to do with it. At the same time, I also felt like a story was written and really developed and evolved based on my choices over time, not linearly, but more in a branching matter. That I felt like I felt satisfied with the result, even when I blew it, and guillotine, bye bye, Ned. That's what I like, is that as you pass through the wilderness of being a nobody and starting off with Napoleon the no one, and start to be somebody, the game does start to give you a tool set of decisions that help you move farther away from that instant death, unless you really do want to. So I do like that. There's this beautiful crescendo to the flow of the game. At first, and I'm not gonna lie to you, at first, when I was playing the first few games, I felt like there was this gravity well that kept sucking glory back down every time I'd start gaining it. Okay, I'm getting glory. I'm hitting these thresholds of glory. Nope, bad things. But then time morphs all things, and the big events, should you get there, are these landmarks that shuttle you forward towards the best glory you can get. Have I achieved uber glory? No, not at all. But I have done it. And this is the biggest pro for it. This is a storytelling machine. This is not a machine that just kind of randomly goes off and meanders along. I don't like Tales of the Arabian Nights, for example. Never really drew me in. I don't like where it's just like, let's tell a story and see what happens and da-da-da-da-da. No, this is a storytelling machine with a purpose and a point and a direction and a drive and a goal and a journey and a quest. And how many other ways can I say the same thing? An adventure, where you initially start off feeling somewhat constrained. You don't have this scope, this small scope of Napoleon, what Napoleon can do, and a lot of it is destiny. Destiny tells you what to do, and then as it starts to ramp up, eventually it gets branches out, it gets diversified and broadened until suddenly you're dictating what's going on, and that morphing of storytelling at the end, we're like, oh man, I shouldn't have relied on this. Oh yay, I pulled it off. I managed to get a legitimate error. Yay, to err really is human. I don't know. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Especially, yeah. Anyway, final thoughts. This is probably the closest GMT game to a choose your own adventure as long as you're Napoleon. As a system, I can see some very valid candidates for sequels for this because I think the system works really, really well. It's a striking pivot for Ted Racer because I know him from Paths of Glory, the Dark Sands, Dark Summer, the Hex and Counterfare. So this is an odd departure, but a very well received one. Oddly, I find this a little bit similar to a game I just finished playing, Slay the Spire, because you are building up over a year with various events that are happening, activities, conflicts, some of which you can take part of, some of which just happen, and then it culminates in what is really kind of a boss fight called the campaign. I love it. I absolutely love it. You get these periods of build-up punctuated with campaigns, all of which make you feel more powerful and more capable right up until the point at which you die. And so it's brilliantly different and brilliantly approachable and surprisingly addictive. It's got stories to tell that are packed into every run through of it that you play, and you'll want to run through it over and over. You really will. And to quote one of my favorite movies, some of you may die, but it's a price the game is willing to make. So I Napoleon, I give it a high rating, probably an 8 of 10. It'll probably climb even higher as I go through it. And as the ancient wisdom says, never let it be said, I nap in bed, for I Napoleon on the couch. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.